The information provided in this show is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. Viewers should use their own discretion and consult with a healthcare professional for personalized guidance and recommendations. Hello and welcome to the Health Revolution. We are hoping you're having an amazing day today, wherever you are tuning in from, and that things are fantastic. I'm your host, Adriana Morrison, and our show today is all about engaging conversation, elevating health and wellness, and empowering transformation. We are wherever you're tuning in from, on E360 TV, on the Achieve TV channel. If it's live, you can certainly share in the comments any questions or concerns. We will be updating the comments and engaging with you whenever possible. And then also, if you're tuning in on demand replay, we appreciate you coming on in today. And so let's get right into it, because we've got an incredible hour for you. My guest, I'm thrilled to introduce. She is someone who I've gotten to know over the last couple of years. We are talking about a successful attorney who has utilized her successes and her story along the way to transform her talents and utilize her abilities to help others in terms of pain and transition. She is an accomplished equestrian. She is an equine gestalt coach, and we're going to talk about that. A speaker, an author. She's got lots to share. We've got plenty of nuggets to dive into. And so with that, I have got to introduce Andrea Hall. Andrea, how are you today?
Hello, my dear. I am well, thank you. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yes, I'm thrilled to have you here. And I'll tell you, when you and I first met, I didn't realize all the titles that you had. I didn't realize all the hats that you wore and the incredible things that you do. Go ahead and give us a little bit of a breakdown. I know you've got an incredible health journey to share that tells where you are leading today. But let's start by getting to know, who are you, Andrea?
Yeah, I have been a criminal defense attorney for the last 18 years. I have specialized in sex offenses and domestic violence. So I've done that for 18 years. And after my health issue, which I know we'll talk about later, I decided that being on the hamster wheel of life was just a little much, and that I got my first warning, and that I needed to figure out what else I could do with life. And so I combined my passion for horses and my love for helping people and coaching people, and combined that and started Wither's Whisper, where I do personal and emotional work coactively with my horses to help people get the things that they want out of life and to help heal things that are potentially stopping them from getting the things that they truly do want in life. I'm a speaker. I've written a couple books. Yeah, just a few caps I wear.
Just a few. So I want to dive right into the human horse connection, because that's one thing that, for me, that's always intrigued me. I love riding horses. I didn't discover that till later in life. But of course, you would be an incredible person to talk about what that means. Talk to us about the benefits of the human horse connection, especially for those who have not had a whole lot of interaction with horses.
So horses are just amazing creatures. If you've just ever been around them, in their presence, they're just healing in nature by being with them. So horses have 4 feet that are on the ground and connected to Mother Earth, where we're separated from that as human beings, right? We wear shoes. Most times we're not even out in our own yard without shoes on, right? And so when you're able to really walk on the earth without shoes and get connected with Mother Earth, it's amazing what can happen. And so the horses are in that environment 24 hours a day, right? Their feet are on the ground constantly. And they're very perceptive because they're a flight or a prey animal, right? And so they're constantly in awareness of what's going on with them, around them, and in the present moment, where unfortunately us as human beings are typically so far removed from the present moment, right? We're either in the future thinking about what we still have to do today, tomorrow, next week, next year, or we're looking in the rear view mirror and analyzing what happened in the past, not here right now in the present moment. And so when you're with a horse, you truly have to be in the present moment, because if you don't, bad things can typically happen. Anywhere from a horse riding accident to getting stepped on to kicked or anything, right? And so horses also get us into our truth. The horses will not be attracted to someone unless they're physically in alignment and they're speaking their truth. And so it's amazing to watch the transformation that happens just even when someone's standing in their presence, let alone doing the work that I do with them.
So tell me, and I love everything that you're saying because they're magnificent creatures, 100%. Were you always around horses growing up? Was that something that you developed your love of horses later on in life as an adult, or where did that begin?
I actually was always attracted to horses when I was a kid. I was raised as a city girl.
Okay.
However, my family, extended family, my mom's family were all farmers. And so when we got the opportunity to go visit cousins and things, I always wanted to be with the horses and ride and things of that nature. And so I didn't have a horse, yet I was always attracted to them. And in my mid 20s, I was in a really serious horse riding accident. I broke my pelvis, shattered my arm, was in a wheelchair for 6 months, had 3 operations. And my mom was like, okay, hopefully we're done with horses, right? And I moved to Colorado and I still was just drawn to the horses. And my mom was like, after all of this, like, you still want to be around horses? And I was like, there's something about them that is calling me, right? And so then I married a cowboy and we have horses and a ranch. And then I got into the work. And yeah, it's just, there's always been this drawn to them. So yeah.
So was this something that only you had a love for horses, or were there others in your family that also shared that same love and spirit that you have for them?
No, just me.
Just you.
Yeah. And like I said, I was raised in a town, 40 minutes away from any of the farms. And my mom just didn't understand because she really didn't have a passion for it. My dad actually was born and raised in Kentucky. My grandmother was born 2 blocks from Churchill Downs. So there's always been this horse thing in my aura and connection. But yes, I'm the only one in the family who has a horse. Now, my nephew likes to ride. So when he comes out to the farm, he likes to ride. But yeah, nobody had the same desire or connection that I did. And especially after I got hurt, they were like, what? She is crazy. Did she actually hurt her head when she fell?
So so take me back to that moment. What did you find was your takeaway from the horse riding accident that allowed you to continue to pursue strengthening your connection with them? Because I got to tell you that sometimes when we're blindsided with an accident, a physical injury, we tend to rethink as humans, redoing the very thing that led us, that created that situation. Talk us through how you processed being able to move forward and still have a love for something that you did without any fear, or without fear standing in your way.
So, in the beginning, when it first happened, I was definitely fearful to be around them. It took me a while to get past that. Then I started riding again, and I knew that there was something about them, and there was a reason that I was still drawn to them. And then, after I really started doing the training and getting certified, I realized how I created that accident. So when you're on the back of the horse, your root chakra, which is your safety and security, is on the horse's back, which is connected to their will and determination. And if your safety and security is not in alignment and you're out, the horse is wanting to get you off, right? Because that's their will and determination. So at the time when I went riding, I had just broke up with a boyfriend. I was in a very bad space mentally and emotionally. And I was like, I'm going to go ride. And that was not a good time for me to be on the back of the horse, as well as the horse made it very clear to me before we even left the barn that he did not want to ride. And he was ignoring me, if you will. And I was just like, you're going to listen to me. You're going to listen to me, right? And because I wasn't an experienced enough rider to probably be on that horse, I got out to the pasture. The horse stopped on me, and I was kicking him to go. And he whipped around on me. And when he bolted, he ripped the reins out of my hands. And because, again, I wasn't an experienced enough rider, intellectually, what I did was I squeezed my legs to hold on. Well, that's the cue for the horse to go faster, not slower.
That's true.
Right?
I know that. Yeah.
Right. So I'm holding on for dear life with my legs, and he's like running faster, faster, faster because I'm cueing him to go faster, right? And so at that point in time, he got to the fence line and he stopped. But I had already been dumped because I couldn't stay in the saddle. I didn't have good enough seat. And so I bounced out and hit the ground in a seated position. And ultimately, when the horse couldn't get to where it needed to go, it came back at me. And I thought, it's over. I'm going to die. Like, this horse is going to trample me to death. And the horse got back to the barn without me, needless to say. And so they came to look for me. And like I said, now that I've done so much of the horse work, I now realize what was going on with me emotionally, which was not safe for me to be on the horse. And now I know why the horse wanted me off, right? Wow. So sometimes, and I see this quite often with people who have sustained trauma, they go to buy a horse. Where do they go? They go to the kill pens, they go to the auctions, right? And they're attracted to the horse who's been abused because it's the mirror of what has transpired in their life. And I'm like, you're attracted to that horse not because that horse is safe for you. You're attracted to that horse because that's a mirror of what's transpired in your life. So I get that you want that horse is not safe. We need to find another horse that's safe for you. But that's what actually does good work a lot of times with what I do is those horses are able to mirror and heal at the same time that somebody else is going through that healing process.
You just gave an aha moment for me because I never thought of it that way, in that we find ourselves being attracted to the very thing that maybe that we're going through. So say trauma, any type of obstacle. So then in the situation where say someone is looking at a horse, which of course they're all magnificent. I never thought of it that way. I can't wait for the day where we're able to have one someday, because that's of course something that speaks to me as well. But it really strikes me how you piece those two things together. And then, of course, as you're saying and leading into the work that you're doing, so so shared with our viewers the title that you have, the Equine Gestalt Coach. And I want you to go ahead and dive into that. What is that exactly? And the type of role that you play with being an equine Gestalt coach.
So the word Gestalt is a German word that means wholeness. It's a therapeutic technique that is used with trained therapists. Typically what happens is when someone goes to school to become a therapist, social worker, things like that, they take one short semester in the Gestalt work. And I really believe that the Gestalt work is where it's at. People a lot of times will go to talk therapy. Talk therapy works for a lot of people. I just am not as strong of a believer in talk therapy because I believe that we respond better when there's an experience, whether it's good or bad. It creates new neural pathways in the brain. So let's just say you've sustained some sort of trauma. There's been some sort of a lightning strike. There is now neural pathways in your brain that fire as a result of that. So anytime that you smell something, you hear a voice that sounds like the person, or you have some sort of an experience that is related to the trauma. So mine, I've had a couple, right? We all have. I was sexually assaulted as a child. And I remember when I first moved to Colorado, I went to a church. And when I walked into church, there was this little old gentleman. He looked exactly like my perpetrator, probably was some great grandfather. However, he triggered me, right? And so he took me right back to the moment that I was 7 years old, sitting in the living room, watching TV, getting touched, right? And he just was attracted to me like no other. Had no idea what he was doing to me, right? But he just wanted to say hi to me all the time when I came to church. And I was like, oh my God, I can't do this anymore, right? Because your brain doesn't decipher between being 7 and being 45 years old, right? Whether it's a good experience or a bad experience. And you can do it with good experiences, right? Like I've gone on a trip with my girlfriends to Mexico, and you always go, I want to recreate that. And you can never recreate that same experience again. It just doesn't ever seem to work, right? So the beautiful thing about the Gestalt is that you're in the present moment, and I don't have to hear what the backstory is, right? Like I don't have to know all the details about you being sexually assaulted. I hear what's happening now, why you're being triggered, and I figure out what was in the background that's the trauma, and then we heal that through the Gestalt technique. You're in the present of the horse, and the horse is doing his or her healing work the whole time you and I, or me and the client, are processing through the Gestalt. And then ultimately the client gets in the round pen with the horse, and it's the final piece. It's the pretty bow that goes on. And when my client leaves, my client looks like they've had a facelift, they've lost 150 pounds, like they're a new human being just by processing whatever has come up in that moment for the hour and a half or the 2 hours that they're with me and my horses. And the other thing that's different about what we do with this technique is that you don't have to come back week or week, because now I've created new neural pathways as a result of this experience. So now you're driving down the interstate at 100 miles an hour, you get triggered, and instead of reacting, you can now respond. I've given you an exit to get off the interstate so that you don't crash, and now you have a way to deal with that, right? So somebody may be triggered at work because the voice they hear is the voice of their father, or they're in the boardroom with their boss and their boss slams their hands down on the table. And as a child, that meant at the dinner table, the dad was going to lose his stuff. Shit was going to go flying, right? And so now I got to get out of here. And they may or may not even know what's going on. They're just having a physical reaction, and they don't like their boss. yet they don't know why they don't like their boss, right? And so it's figuring out what the trauma is. And so many times people think that it has to be something like I was sexually assaulted or my parents were divorced. Well, I can tell you, I'm traumatized by math. I went to law school instead of med school as a result of the experience I had in third grade with flashcards standing next to next to our chair, and somebody coming up next to me and the teacher at the front of the room doing flashcards, right? Like somebody says to me, let's do math now, and I just freeze. So it could be something like that. And what my trauma is may not be anything remotely close to your trauma, right? Like people can live in the house and something traumatic happens. My dad died when I was 17. My experience of my dad's death at 17 is totally different than my brother's experience of my dad's death at 15 and at 9, because our ages of development are completely different. As well as I was a female and my brothers were males, and their role model died, right? So everyone's experience of the same event is completely different. I mean, you could talk to people like any event that happens in a family and they're like, wow, you remember it like that? Because that's not how I remember it.
That's true. That's pretty powerful. We're going to go ahead. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we will be right back with my guest, Andrea Hall, here on the Health Revolution.
Coming this spring, by popular demand, the second season show on the Tour of Love.
And the E360 TV platform is saying we want the Tour of Love.
With winner of the first Global Impactor Award, Tamara Hunter, along with Emmy-winning co-host Skip Thomas.
We are going on tour, on the road. It's time. Love unites, and there is healing through connections. This is a worldwide movement, the Tour of Love.
And we're back here on the Health Revolution. I'm your host, Adriana Morrison. We are talking with my guest, Andrea Hall, Equine Gestalt Coach, speaker, author, attorney. We were just diving into some of the components of why Gestalt therapy is so powerful and so helpful and beneficial in so many ways. And so let's pick up where we last left off, Andrea. So as you were diving into becoming a coach, what is the one thing that you noticed that was the biggest driver for you to utilize this technique in helping so many others get past their obstacle, their hurt, their trauma, anything that's been in their way that stopped them from having that optimal health and the life that they want?
Well, like I said before we went to commercial, the fact of the matter is that once you do this Gestalt work, you create the new neural pathways in your brain. And so you're no longer reacting, you can now respond to an event. The other thing that I find is more beneficial about that is that you don't have to come back week after week. This is something that you then go back and digest and implement into your life. And it may be another 6 or 8 weeks before you come back for a session. And you don't have to rehash what you did last week in therapy, because it's not about that. It's about what's coming up in the present moment. And again, we don't have to hear about the backstory, because the backstory is not what's important. It's that you're being triggered and that we're able to heal whatever that trauma was. Because it's really not about the story. It's about how do we heal what that trauma is. And then we work through the Gestalt technique of healing that. And there may be other layers to a piece. Like the example I used, if you've been sexually assaulted, right? One of those pieces of work may be having a conversation with the perpetrator, having a conversation with yourself so that you're not blaming yourself, having a conversation with the person that you told that didn't believe you, or having a conversation with the person you weren't able to tell because it wasn't safe, right? There may be an anger piece in there, an anger piece at yourself, an anger piece at the person who did it to you. There's so many pieces of that, but they're all part and parcel of the healing process. And again, once that is done, you don't have to keep going back week after week and address it. It's really healed.
So I love this, because this is a deep dive into getting to the healing process. So I want to segue a little bit into your line of work that you found yourself as an attorney, and then what you've seen, and just generally speaking, what you've seen in terms of people who are processing, an incident or even a situation in which they're needing your services, or that they're needing that legal counsel. What have you noticed that people go through, and that you tend to take maybe universal elements and you apply it to your line of work to be helpful? So just if you can share a little bit about that.
Well, like I said, I think so many times people think you have to have some sort of major trauma, like be sexually assaulted, parents are divorced, you're a drug addict, and that's not the case. We all have trauma that's potentially holding us back from our hopes, our dreams, relationships, whatever it is that you want. Because most of us are living a good life. But wouldn't you want to have a great life if it was possible, right?
Oh,
yeah. And it is possible. The problem is most people are really floating through life and dying. They're not living. And so people stay stuck in what's comfortable, because growth is not comfortable. So it's better to stay in what's constant, that I know, right? And this is very, very true in like domestic violence, right? I can stay in this relationship because even though it's terrible, even though I know that he or she is going to go off the rails, they're going to hit me, they're going to hurt me, they're going to control me, this is constant. I know the bills are paid. I know I have a paycheck. I have a roof over my head. We have food, whatever it is, right? Like this is a guarantee. However, to step outside of that, the unknown, like how am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to get money out of a bank account? How am I going to survive? I only get $10 a week. They control all of the money. I don't have a job. I'm a stay-at-home mom. I have got 2 kids, all of this stuff, right? So until the pain gets greater than the pain of the unknown, they won't change, right? And so it's healing that so that people can have the things that they want, because we all desire to have a great and fantastic life. And in the criminal justice system, there hasn't been one person that's walked into my life that didn't end up in the criminal justice system because there isn't some sort of trauma. Most of the time, they've been sexually assaulted and they're killing themselves with drugs because they're numbing that. There's been some sort of a divorce, domestic violence in the family, parents were drug addicts. Like I said, people don't just wake up one day and think it's a good idea to start using heroin or going and robbing a bank or, drinking themselves to death. And if you can heal those things, you're going to get people out of the criminal justice system. But again, the criminal justice system is a moneymaker. And so we don't want to heal people, right? Like If we spent $40,000 and sent someone to a rehab that actually got to the root of the problem and didn't put a Band-Aid on a wound that needs staples and tourniquet, we wouldn't have people in prison. We'll spend $40,000, $50,000 on one person for a year in prison where they get nothing, and then you turn them loose. You've not healed anything. You've not set them up for success. Now they're a convicted felon and you want them to get a job. You want them to find a place to live. That's not easy, right? And so you're just stacking more things and odds against them to be successful. And you wonder why they're back in the system, because they go back to doing exactly what they know how to do before. And it gets them back in trouble because we never healed anything.
So I think, I hear so much. And of course, you've got such an insight because of being an attorney. And I think I can only imagine some of what say you've seen. So what's been the one thing that, especially as someone who has spent time in the legal system, offering legal counsel, and then utilizing the just being able to utilize equine work in this regard, what's the one thing that you've noticed that a tie-in, the feeling, the type of yearning that humans that you've seen, what's the connection that you're seeing from hurt to healing? How does someone get to the place where they embrace the healing, where they choose to go and seek what can help them heal?
Well, I mean, first of all, you have to be willing. I mean, the prime example is you can take the horse to the water, but if the horse doesn't want to drink, the horse is not going to drink.
That's true.
Right? So, I mean, the first step with any healing process is recognizing that there's a problem and being aware of it and wanting something different. Like I said, a lot of times people aren't ready for it because healing and doing the work is not always easy. And once you know, you're not able to unknow. You know, I've been in the personal development work probably for about 15 years. And there is no way that I would ever want to go back to the place of not knowing. Yet, unfortunately, sometimes it can be really ugly because I'm like, I'm not able to unknow that now.
Yep.
And you have to do the work.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, it's not always easy. And I see this a lot in the legal system, just as a professional standpoint, not even people who are in trouble in the criminal justice system, but in the professional, right? Like, we don't recognize that our hair is on fire in this profession and that we're running around just doing this, going, yep, it's going to be fine. I'm like, your hair's on fire, call 911, right? Like, when I look at what lawyers are in trouble for every single month that I get my magazine, it's typically the same things. They're not communicating with their client, they've got trust account issues, and they've been in trouble for drinking, drugs, domestic violence, things of that nature. And I'm like, you know, if you're not able to control your trust account, it's probably because there's some sort of an addiction or something going on. If you're not communicating with your clients, I mean, they're all intertwined, right? But our legal profession still is taboo around mental health and wellness. There's only 8 states in the United States that even have a half a credit to a credit for any mental health or wellness continuing education credits, and we're required to take those. And I think, wow, if our own profession doesn't even want to look at it, how is it that we expect to see any change in the criminal justice system, which we're fighting for, when our own profession isn't willing to look in the mirror, right?
That is so, that's alarming to me, that only 8 states, which means that, so from what you're saying, I mean, it's just a domino effect. It's almost as though it continues, and that it becomes quite the challenge to try and pump the brakes on embracing mental health and getting more attention to it, from what you're saying.
Yeah, it's really sad that, like I said, we fight so much for our clients, and yet we're not fighting for ourselves. And it's been hard to watch. And this is one of the things that led me to this, right? Like, I was in a 5-day jury trial when my 18-month-old puppy died, and I started getting physically ill after that. And then I ultimately found out 3 years later that I had a brain tumor, and I said, what am I physically killing myself for? Because at the end of the day, I don't get baby announcements, Christmas cards, marriage announcements. Like, I'm lucky if the client pays their bill, right? They don't inform me of what's going on good in their life. And so I said, why am I continuing to kill myself physically, mentally, if at the end of the day, no one cares about me? Because if I don't care about myself and they don't care about me, where does that leave me? Which then, brought me to this place of really healing me and working with the horses.
So then would you say that then the series of events, so the intense trial, the loss of your pup, the brain tumor that you discovered that you had, would you say that in some ways that was just that was life, or that was a situation where you had to come to a stop, that if things didn't change, then your trajectory would look incredibly dicey going forward?
100%. I firmly believe that we all get the whisper. And whether you hear the whisper or not, if you choose to ignore it or you don't hear it, you will continue to get things until it stops you in your tracks, right? And so I was getting whispers that I either didn't see the signs for at the time or chose to ignore. And ultimately, the brain tumor was the 2x4 upside the head. And at that point in time, I said, okay, I got you loud and clear. Like, I hear you. I missed the signs before, but I'm not missing this one. And so I said, okay, I've got to choose something different for my life. Otherwise, I will physically kill myself.
Did you know at the time when you had the brain tumor, when you were given the diagnosis, and then the rehabilitation process that happened afterwards, did you know that you would be turning to the horses? And did you know at the time that they would have such an impact on your life the way that you lead today?
So I was already on the journey with the horses because I had been sick for about 3 years, and they kept telling me they didn't know what was the matter with me. And so I was doing what I thought to make myself better. I had done Reiki, and I had done cranial massage, and I had changed diets, and I had done acupuncture. I mean, you name it, I had done it. And it just wasn't fixing it. And so ultimately, right before I was diagnosed, my insurance company was fighting with me about the MRI, and I flippantly said to them, I'm going to add you to the list of the people I sue when you find out I have a brain tumor and you sent me to physical therapy. And you didn't even know what was the matter with me. So intuitively, I think I already knew that there was the brain tumor because obviously it came out of my mouth. I just didn't consciously know that was what was going on. And I was about to enter my second training for the horse work when I found out that I had the brain tumor. And at that point is when I said, okay, I'm on the right track.
Wow. I love the succession of events in where you truly, I mean, it was right there that the answer was right in plain sight. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that in doing all that you needed to do medically speaking, then this sounds like for your journey that this was that one missing piece that allowed you to really push and continue to heal.
Absolutely.
Wow. Okay. We're going to take a quick break, of course. And we've been chatting with Andrea Hall. We will be right back here on The Revolution after this.
so fragile, and we're constantly reminded just how fragile life can be, especially when we or a loved one is told we have cancer. Cancer survivor myself, I can tell you, we still feel very alone in this journey.
There's a study that's been showing that patients who are socially isolated have a worse prognosis, have a worse outcome than patients who are socially interconnected.
Buddies for Life is a non-profit cancer support group for those whose life has been impacted by cancer. Humor, hope, heart, and hugs.
Humor, hope, heart, hugs, and a whole lot of love.
Share this with your friends and family and support this community in every way you can. No one should face cancer alone.
I am a chemo buddy for life.
We are a buddies network.
No one does cancer alone.
Be a buddy.
And we are all here for you as a community of love.
We are chemo buddies for life.
And if you've heard 3 words, you have cancer, for yourself or someone else, you belong with us at Chemo Buddies for Life.
Healing through connections.
We're back here on the Health Revolution. I'm your host, Adriana Morrison, and we've been talking with my guest, Andrea Hall, Equine Gestalt Coach, speaker, author, and attorney. And she's been sharing with us her journey, her health journey that has allowed her to integrate her talents, utilizing the horses, and being able to be a service to others. Andrea, if you can share a little bit more about, you were talking about healing from learning that you had a brain tumor, turning to the horses, really getting granular with what you were bringing to the table as an EGC. Tell us a little bit more about how things are looking for the program that you have to offer.
Yeah. So as I said earlier in this interview, I really believe that having some sort of a healing experiential event causes the change and the transformation. And so the work that we do at Withers Whisper with the horses, I believe is amazing and changes people's lives even after one session. Like I said, I believe that, the clients that come in look and feel completely different after they've had a session with the horses, whether it's looking like they've had a facelift or lost 150 pounds and then, coming back and seeing me in like 6 or 8 weeks. And so it's a process. Like I said, just even being in their presence, I know that there's been times where I've gone out to be with the horses and I'll just start crying for no reason. And I'm thinking, what's that about? Where's that coming from? And it's like, well, clearly it needed to come out, and they brought that out. So just being with them is amazing. I love going out to our ranch and just, whether it's just brushing them, having a conversation with them, just being with them and being quiet. You've experienced it yourself, whether it's you're riding with the horses or you've come to one of our events and got to experience the healing power of the horses.
Well, I have to share with our viewers and those tuning in live and also on-demand replay that I actually had the opportunity to experience what Andrea's program, what Withers Whisper has to offer. I was out there, Andrea, I think in 2021, and I was there for your summer solstice event. And I will just tell you, it was incredible. First of all, Colorado sunrises, just speak in and of itself. But what I loved about it is the ambiance and the natural beauty with the peace that the entire environment was providing for those of us who were there, and how you were leading. I literally was overcome with emotion. It was such a beautiful moment. So I have to throw it out there that I've not forgotten it. And your horses are beautiful and incredible. And I love what you're doing. And I'm just paying homage to you with that.
Yeah, it's amazing. And unfortunately this year with the rain, we weren't able to do the summer solstice. However, we do have the end of the summer sunset that we do as well. And so I'm looking forward to that in September.
So in September, and of course, as viewers are tuning in, and now is this your event in the fall? It's just one event in September that when it's taking place?
Yeah, so we do it very similar to the sunrise. It starts at 5:30 at night, and we'll have a fire. We've done drumming to close out the summer, and we'll probably do drumming again to close out the summer. There'll be some journaling exercises and things of that nature. And then, of course, we'll be in the presence of the horses.
Yes. Incredible. And of course, that's that transition from summer to fall, beautiful time in Colorado. One thing I will say to those viewers that this is a neat thing to do if you are new to Colorado, or say you're coming to Colorado and you're exploring all that it has to offer. This is definitely something that is worth partaking in. And then in addition to that, I want to speak a little bit about other titles that you have. You're a speaker and you're an author. Share with us how you became to be an author and what pieces that you've written.
Sure. So the first book I wrote was really around my law practice and giving people the tools that are necessary once they've entered the criminal justice system, especially with a sex offense, because so many times people would come into my office and go, how come I'm not able to see my kids? This offense had nothing to do with my kids. Or how come I'm not able to be by a school? This offense had nothing to do with children. And so it's just really laying out the nuts and bolts of what to expect when you enter the criminal justice system. It's called Sex and Justice. And then I wrote 2 books around the horses. And I shouldn't say I wrote the book, but I'm an author in both of those books. So I wrote a story about my journey with infertility and how the horses helped me heal that piece with regard to my infertility and surrendering to the dream. And that is in one of the Gestalt coaching books that we have through Melissa Pierce's program. And then I wrote another story about the horses, and that is in another book, and all of that can be found on my website.
Yes, and her program is called Touched by a Horse. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. And I love how you're able to, obviously this is a clear example of you being of service and offering guidelines, not only in the criminal justice system, that the book that you've written, but then also what you've done with horses. Is there any upcoming publications that are on the horizon? I've got to ask.
You know, I don't know. I've been asked to write some more books, but I don't know. I gotta be really inspired, and I'm like, what's next? I'm kind of in a transition stage in my life right now of what I'm gonna do. I'm looking for a new career, and so I don't know what that looks like. My creativity has been flowing a lot this summer, and we'll see, I guess, where it goes. I'm not sure where I'm gonna land just yet.
Ooh, I hope that this talk helps to cultivate and marinate ideas that come to fruition. So tell us about, you're a speaker. Can you share a little bit about just the platforms you've spoken on, or of the different topics that you've spoken on, and how you tend to speak in those stages, environments where those can learn from you?
Yeah, so I've done a lot of speaking as a trial attorney, whether it's at colleges or for organizations, talking about, the criminal justice system, some of the things that, I've addressed in the book there, that first book that I wrote, because it's hard to navigate the criminal justice system if you've never been involved, especially if you've been accused of some sort of a sex offense. moving on then, to speaking around the healing, my aha moment of when I was diagnosed with a brain tumor, how I've experienced the horses, how my clients have experienced the horses, the ahas that have come out of the healing work with the horses, the transformation, how that's all possible. And so just focusing on that healing power, and that it doesn't have to be something major. It could be really something minimal to maybe me, but it's life-changing for you. Like I said, the example around math, like people don't think that math is that big of a deal, but when it changed the trajectory of me going to law school versus medical school, I mean, that's huge. I mean, that's a major life transformation right there as a result of some trauma around math, right? I could easily be a doctor and be having a conversation with you about medical things versus, healing with horses and the legal system, right?
And for our viewers, Andrea and I had a conversation earlier about how her challenges with math growing up, that was just, that was an absolute no-go. Actually, it was a no-go for me too. So I'll need to put that in there. But that you feeling like this was not your jam, that you had switched, that you shifted into a different gear.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Okay, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break. We're going to be right back here on The Health Revolution.
Hi, I'm Julie Jones Hamilton, and my partner, Lynn Kitchen, and I co-host World's Greatest Motivators every Sunday at 4 p.m. Pacific on the Achieve channel. Come join us and the best thought leaders in the planet today, right here at E360 TV.
You're tuning into The Health Revolution. I'm your host, Adriana Morrison. We've had an incredible opportunity to sit down with Andrea Hall, Equine Gestalt Coach, speaker, author, attorney. She's been sharing her journey and her incredible work that she's been doing with horses and helping others heal. She has a end of summer event coming in September where anyone who is interested can certainly check out her information. We'll go ahead and we'll pull up her website here. The name is Withers Whisper, witherswhisper.com. You can find out all the information about her services, what she has to offer, anything that she's talked about, the speaking, the writing that she has done, the books, all of that, being able to contact her. Andrea, so when we talked about your journey, one thing I would like to ask today, is there a mantra, or is there a quote that really sticks with you, that resonates, that you go to remind you of why you're doing what you're doing and to keep moving forward?
Yeah. Life is 10% what happens to you and 90% what you make of it.
Yes.
Yeah, because we can all be involved in the same thing, whether it's a death, it's a loss of a job, it's a marriage, it's a divorce, whatever it is. And we all experience it different, right? Someone may say that a divorce is bad, and someone may say the divorce was the best thing that ever happened to me because I was able to spread my wings and fly. I left a domestic partner, a death is bad, right? No, a death could be good because of what you experienced from it, who you were able to discover in the inside, how you were able to heal, crack that open, and maybe love quicker, easier as a result of knowing that life is precious and it can be taken away from us at any given point in time. So it's really how we respond to that. And unfortunately, us as human beings make things right or wrong, and nothing is right or wrong.
That's true. That's powerful. And that's something that we can all be reminded of. And we're actually out of time. For those of you who are tuning in, thank you so much. Those who have tuned in live, and then if you're catching the replay on demand, thank you for tuning in. The Health Revolution is live Tuesdays and Thursdays here on the Achieve TV channel, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Andrea, my guest, my friend, an amazing woman. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, my dear. It was a pleasure.
Yes. All right. And to everyone tuning in, thank you for doing so. Have an amazing rest of your day or evening, and we will see you next time.